Here is a brief guide to all weapon and ability techs in Darktide. The first and most basic of all techs is known as block canceling. Block canceling allows you to reset your attack animation in order to repeat a smaller selection of attack patterns for maximum damage potential. Ogryn's shield can be block cancelled after its first heavy attack for maximum stagger and defensive potential. The Mark III Heavy Eviscerator can have its first light attack block cancelled for rapid, high-damaging single-target attacks. This is useful against lesser special and elite units when you don't want to commit to the long special-infused attacks, and smaller groups of trash units when using a horde clear combo would be too slow. This is particularly effective for killing smaller enemies fast due to the angle of the first attack being perfect for headshots. The Mark IV Force Sword can be block cancelled after an attack combo of light, heavy to allow for 2 double stabs, granting a boost to single target DPS and overall stagger power. Darktide introduces various kinds of block cancels, though, that can be performed in many different ways other than blocking. These are typically named after the action you must do in order to achieve the animation cancel. Ogryn's Bully Clubs can have their heavy attacks slap cancelled to repeatedly chain together the first heavy attack without having to go through the entire heavy attack pattern, which opens up new forms of single target and horde clearing on each Bully Club. Similarly, the Dueling Swords can also have their heavy attacks cancelled via the special attack for the same effect. This is useful to allow for a slightly higher single target damage combo on the Mark II and grants reliable single target stagger on all sword variants. The Devil's Claw Swords can have their heavy attacks parry cancelled in order to chain the first heavy in the attack pattern over and over again. This is most often seen on the Mark IV Claw Sword as the tech works best on that weapon, but can also be used with the Mark VII and the Mark I. All of Psyker's staves can have their left clicks quell cancelled by briefly quelling in between attacks, which can allow for an incredibly fast fire rate. While using the plasma gun, briefly sprinting during the tail end of the reload animation allows you to skip the final second of the animation and get to shooting faster. Timing your sprint right after the magazine is reloaded on your HUD is key to making this tech reliable. While playing Zealot, you can skip the pullout animation of any weapon by throwing a throwing knife. This is most useful while using the Flamer and the Bolt Gun, as it allows you to almost entirely skip the long pullout animation of both weapons. While using any weapon that has the Charge Up or Rev Up special ability, you can charge or rev that weapon while simultaneously holding block, which will reduce the amount of time you spend vulnerable. You will drop your guard for a time after activating, and the time you spend vulnerable depends on the weapon and the speed at which their Charge Up animation plays. Most notably, Psyker's Force Swords are among the longest and leave you vulnerable for the longest, whereas Vet's Power Swords and Zealot's Crusher have the shortest. Movement techs are specific techs that you can perform with weapons that allow you to move faster. Weapon techs have gotten multiple nerfs over the years, but one primary one still remains. While using the combat knives, holding a heavy attack grants you a burst of speed and allows you to move faster, and queuing up another heavy right as your attack releases allows you to chain the move speeds together for maximum speed. You can choose to slide as you release the heavy attack to conserve stamina, but at the cost of a slightly slower top speed. The only other move tech that remains in the game exists in the form of sliding off of ledges, which will get you extra speed and send you flying, which can be done off of any drop-off or any vaultable object. QQ cancelling is the act of double tapping your quick swap key, default Q on PC, which is where the tech gets its name from, in order to quickly switch away and back to your weapon in order to skip some kind of animation. If you activate Thunderhammers or Heavy Eviscerators and suddenly decide you do not want them to be charged anymore, you can QQ cancel in order to instantly get rid of the charge, rather than having to wait for it to time out or hit an enemy and open yourself up. This also works on all chain weapons and Psyker's Force Swords, which can be really useful if you want to build peril quickly. The Mark 15 Heavy Eviscerator can have its first light attack QQ cancelled to significantly speed up the attack animation and allow for much faster horde clearing potential. Likewise, the Mark III Heavy Eviscerator can also be QQ cancelled after its first heavy attack to allow you to consistently chain the first heavy attack together. This allows you to get slightly increased stagger power over the typical attack combos of the weapon, but is admittedly almost entirely irrelevant now after the recent Eviscerator buffs. Speaking of QQ canceling heavies, the Achilles Mark 8 combat axe can also have its first heavy attack QQ cancelled for significantly increased attack speed and damage. All of Ogryn's cleavers can be QQ cancelled while charging any heavy attack to instantly and repeatedly charge the second heavy in the chain, which is always a left to right sweep. This can be mixed with thrust and Ogryn's heavy hitter nodes to allow for solid horde clearing potential. All of Ogryn's Ripper guns can be QQ cancelled in the middle of their left-click burst fire to stop the burst fire prematurely, although you technically only have to tap Q once to stop the burst. In addition to weapon techs, various abilities in the game also have some comparatively basic techs associated with them. With Assail, holding right-click to lock onto an enemy and aiming above the enemy will cause the shard to come straight down on top of their head for an almost guaranteed headshot. This is most useful against enemies crouching behind cover and bulwarks, as you can reliably bypass their shield. Releasing a charged smite and flicking in a direction will hard stagger trash units in that direction. Using Voice of Command or Venting Shriek will not interrupt your reload animation, allowing you to ult in the middle of them and reduce the time you spend vulnerable. While using Shroud Field, timing an attack right as you activate the ability allows you to proc Shroud Field without breaking invisibility, allowing you to get 2 Shroud Field attacks instead of 1. Did I miss any weapon or ability techs? If I did, let me know about them down in the comments below.